Well, staying in New Brunswick, New Brunswickers are about to see a big change at the pumps. They're facing 2 new carbon-related charges, which could mean heftier bills when they fill up. That's a major focus for Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre. He's in Moncton today. Our Janice McGregor is on this story and joins us now. So, Janice, what's Pierre Poilievre saying about all of this?
Well, this just in, he's against inflation and specifically reminding people of a huge increase in the cost of gas that is coming to Atlantic Canada as of July 1st, and specifically to the province of New Brunswick to an even greater extent. Why? Well, we already knew that there are federal fuel charges being applied. Now, the federal government reminds us that they offset those with the federal climate initiative, those payments that go out quarterly now to help offset the burden on individual households as they all try to give people incentives to save on energy and also help everyone get to their carbon emissions targets at the same time. But on top of that, the federal government brought in what it calls a clean fuel standard to try to get the industry to use cleaner, greener technologies as it produces fuel, maybe give an incentive to have more biofuels, ethanol mixed in that does not result in as much carbon emissions. In New Brunswick, though, the Higgs government gave its Energy and Utilities Board a mandate to pass the cost of that clean fuel standard on directly to consumers. And so when the companies came and said, okay, here's our worst case scenario, but what this is going to cost us, that is all flowing through to consumers. So in addition to the 3 or 4 cents of additional kind of what we would consider federal carbon tax increases for the cost at the pumps, there is also this kind of 8 cents that attributes to the clean fuel standard. And you put HST on top of that. And for most folks, they might be looking at maybe 13 cents more a litre as of early July for their gas and their diesel. That is certainly a significant leap, and one that consumers, Pierre Poilievre says, absolutely cannot afford, while the price of everything continues to be high. Blaine Higgs, of course, facing a lot of political turmoil, shuffled his cabinet today, turmoil over the gender identity policies in schools. But Pierre Poilievre today applauding him, standing with him for being on the same page as federal Conservatives when it comes to carbon taxes.
I want to thank Blaine Higgs for helping me fight the carbon tax. The Premier has been fighting hard to bring lower prices to New Brunswickers and more powerful paychecks to his people, and I congratulate him for that and the other good work that he's doing on behalf of the province.
Poilievre was also asked about rumors that the refinery in St. John may actually be sold, something that gives people fears about jobs. Poilievre said today that is directly attributable, in his opinion, to Justin Trudeau's energy policies. But look, Atlantic premiers, not just Blaine Higgs, signed a letter asking to meet directly with Justin Trudeau to talk about this clean fuel standard, saying it leads to unique and troubling circumstances that Atlantic Canadians will be disproportionately bearing an inequitable burden as a result of these extra costs for their fuel, and really calling on the Prime Minister to do something about it, because they say federal Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault is not responsive to their concerns.
So, Janice, how damaging then is this to the federal government's efforts to try and get the public here on side with Ottawa's climate change policies?
Exactly. So Stephen Guilbeault and his colleagues, including Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson, Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair, were actually in Vancouver today announcing the National Adaptation Strategy for climate change. The things this country has to do, frankly, to deal with the effects, more floods, more wildfires, heat waves as a result of climate change. Guilbeault himself was talking about how, yes, the costs of climate change are not equally borne, but also the effects of climate change are not equally borne. And there is a climate justice issue mixed in as Canada sort of develops its strategy going forward. Here's more from Stephen Guilbeault today.
Canada's not ready face the impacts of climate change. And that strategy is our response to that. How do we ensure that Canadians and that we as a country are better prepared to face the impacts of climate change? Some of the things have started to happen. There's already been some initiatives, some investment, but we know we have a lot of work to do ahead of us.
They are announcing close to $2 billion in federal programs to try to mitigate, adapt to climate change. Of course, the costs of these disasters in the tens and hundreds of billions of dollars. So, the provinces are on board for some of the mitigation and adaptation strategies that have been worked out as part of what was announced today. But the question is, what do you do about not having carbon emissions go up any further? That's where the differences between the provinces and the federal government arise, as we're seeing in New Brunswick.
Janice McGregor for us in Ottawa.